We're rolling. Okay, Merry Christmas, everyone. Well, I wrote the bulk of this on Christmas anyway. Merry Christmas, including to the weirdo right-wingers who think I'm their best friend after the last couple of videos. I mean, if you or anyone else thinks any overlap in our Venn diagrams is anything more than a temporary state of coincidence and convenience, I do look forward to your future disappointed letters. You've all got to learn, and this is actually the underlying theme of this video. The definition of friend is not enemy of my enemy. Anyway, let's get to today's topic. All hail Satan! Yes, hail Satan! Oh, okay, that's not good. That's why I'm not in a band, actually. Anyway. But let's talk Satan, everyone. And before we begin, I want to specify that I am an atheist. I don't think there's a God, or a devil, or any such thing as a soul or a spirit. I don't even know what someone means when they say that they're spiritual, especially if they say, I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I have no idea what that's supposed to mean. It's all nonsense to me. I mean, all we are as human beings are electrochemical reactions in our brains and the meat suits that support those brains. Whenever I use any concept such as God or Satan or spirit, it's entirely fictional or metaphorical. Now then, while on my pre-Christmas holiday, and if you take your holiday the week before the actual holiday, well, we paid a third of what we would have if we'd done it on the holiday. So just a life hack from Uncle Jim here. Anyway, at breakfast on one of the days, I saw a person wearing a satanic feminist t-shirt. And I thought, what in the world? Feminism isn't satanic. It's pretty much the opposite of satanic. See, I recognize two forms of Satanism. First, actual devil worship. Whether organized or independent, whether it's intellectualized or killing animals in some ritualized manner, it's psychotic, but it's actually satanic. Then there's LaVeyan Satanism. It's atheistic, atheist. It's basically just spooky objectivism, but it uses the trappings of the occult and is so naked in its selfishness and indulgence and in its rejections of Christianisms like turn the other cheek and things like that, sure, Satanism, yeah. But then there's this weird idea of Satanism out there these days, the satanic temple kind, that seems to simply be an inversion of the worst qualities of American Christian fundamentalism or evangelicalism or whatever the term is, the Christian nationalism, whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, here's the attitude. Oh, if the Jesus freaks are the bad guys, then Satan can be a good guy, and that's the only possible explanation I can come up with for any organization to have tenets like, quote, one should strive to act with compassion and empathy towards all creatures in accordance with reason, and the struggle for justice is an ongoing and necessary pursuit that should prevail over laws and institutions. You have tenets like that and you label it Satanism? What? Satanism isn't humanism, and I include feminism, at least in its basic forms, as humanism. And pretending that it is humanism only ruins the entire concept of Satan and the devil as an actual warning if religious stuff is true, and conceptually, literarily, and metaphorically if religions aren't literally true. I mean, forget the practical rhetorical mistake of labeling the things you think would bring a better world with the name that your opposition thinks is literally the fucking devil. That's just going to make them fight you that much harder and make it much more difficult to bring anyone over from that side. I mean, I get the impulse, but it's not the smartest. Anyway. And forget the actual clever trolling they do in service of strengthening the Establishment Clause in the United States by putting up Baphomet statues in government buildings where Christian iconography has been placed. I mean, that's a good thing to do, but forget all that for a minute. Where do you get the idea that Satan is the proper label for being in opposition to religious power or extremism? Where do you get the idea that Satan is good? In my readings of the Bible passages involving Satan, and if you're going to use the names and characters and figures from a religion, maybe you go back to the original religious texts, you know. And I say, everything I'm going to say here is like, I know that the original writers wrote all of those bits in the Bible independently, and they weren't originally intended to be the same entity. But people understand it differently these days, so I'm going to go with the understanding. But in my readings of these passages involving Satan, I'm not seeing that goodness at all. Satan can be seen as a usurper, a tempter, a trickster, maybe even a Promethean figure. But nowhere, even if you look at the Bible as an extremely biased, one-sided account and see God as not being nearly as righteous as he wants us to think that he is, in no way is Satan good. Snowplows. Lovely timing. Anyway, I hope you can hear me over that. Anyway, let's take a look at a few of these biblical passages. Take the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Yeah? Oh God, is this guy gonna... Yeah, he's gonna turn this way, isn't he? Live taping in public, folks. I thought I picked a secluded spot, but civic services occurring. No, I'm not editing this. I don't do edits. Okay. I just wanted to do this outside because I think it looks nice, better than looking at my CD shelves. Anyway, the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Yeah, you could say God is keeping humans ignorant in a state of eternal childhood. You can say that's awful. But in convincing humans to eat the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, yeah, you can say Promethean figure, but Adam and Eve learn shame. They certainly learn evil. They learn the pains of labor, and they learn death. You know, that was even told to them. God told them, "You will die if you eat this," and he wasn't lying, but. You'd think that having the knowledge is good, and maybe it is, but it certainly was a deal with the devil. You know, it's not all good. There are consequences to knowing the bad things too. But that also leads us to the concept of original sin, where all of humanity is tainted by the eating of the fruit, and you can say on God's part that that's some awful shit to inflict on every human ever because of being offended by the actions of two, but are you going to tell me that Satan, a fallen angel, had no idea about the consequences of what he was trying to push onto Adam and Eve? I would find that rather hard to believe. So it was either the point of what he was doing, or at the very least, acceptable collateral damage. I tend to read this as Satan fucking with God more than helping Adam and Eve, but your mileage may vary on this whole essay, actually. Or take the story of Job. Satan, and there's no doubt of his identity in this story, basically makes a bet with God that Job only has faith because of God's approval and protection. So God, the beneficent and omnipotent cosmic power that he is, decides to let Satan utterly destroy Job's life. So Satan destroys Job's property and wealth and kills his servants and kills his children and does other shit to him. Mass murder. Just to prove a point. That Job's faith does not break in the story is besides our current point. This is Satan and how Satan works. Never mind the fact that if the Bible was literally true, this story would be enough to prove that the God of the Bible may be all-powerful and all-knowing, but is most certainly not worthy of worship and is definitely not all good. It blows my mind that if this is all true, that God would think this is a good thing to have included in the Bible. And if it's all just the work of humans, humans made this all up, it still blows my mind that the Bible compilers all got together and thought, yeah, this makes our guy in the sky look just dandy and great. Fuck with him all you want, he will still love me. What a cunt, right? Anyway, Christians, I look forward to your comments and letters. Yeah. But that plow's certainly... is he coming back up the street? Okay, no. No, he's going up the other street. Very good. Thorough plowing being done here. So, but as much as a dick that God is in the Job story to let Job be fucked with just to prove a point, we cannot forget that it is Satan that instigated the entire scenario and actually does the fucking with. Does the murdering. You can say that Satan outsmarted God and received official approval for all the mayhem he already wanted to perform. He found a way to work the system to enact his will. He tricked God into proving God's capability for carelessness and callousness and pettiness and vanity. You can interpret the story this way, as a flex of power or cleverness on Satan's part. I don't see how you interpret this story in a way that shows Satan as good, no matter what you think of God. What the hell, man? And now let's talk about Satan tempting Jesus out in the desert. To my understanding, as limited as it may be, the purpose of Jesus in the Bible story is to be humanity's shield against the wrath of God. He dies for our sins. As he is dying, he implores God to forgive humanity. I can very much sympathize more for Christians' veneration for Jesus than their veneration for God, by the way, while you're asking. And pretty much all of the Jesus stuff, his words and actions and miracles that have been passed down, let's assume that it is airtight as it happened in the Bible for our current purposes here. All of that comes after the temptation. If Jesus gives in to Satan's temptation, what do we lose if we take the Bible at face value? Among other things, we lose the Sermon on the Mount. We lose the sacrifice, the resurrection. Jesus doesn't die for our sins. So, what would the consequences be of these things not happening? Of Jesus not dying for our sins? Of not receiving that grace? Again, within the context of the Bible story. All of those consequences, everything that we as a world and a culture don't have, or metaphysically don't have, that's Satan. That's all Satan. That's what he was trying to bring about. You don't have to believe the Bible is true to get my point here. You don't even have to think that the Bible is an important story that signifies or means anything to get my point here. Even if we just consider the whole thing a flight of fancy, no more weighty than a Conan tale or some internet creepypasta, the fact is that the character of Satan behaves in certain and specific ways. And you would have to distort the stories to the point of being unrecognizable in order to come out with a Satan that is on our side, that you can sympathize with and align with, and still consider yourself a good decision maker. I mean, a couple of examples, few examples. You can write a story that says that John McClane was a firefighter from Chicago. You can write a story where Superman is a mass rapist. If you wanted, you could do that. But these would obviously be great corruptions of those characters. And if you're going to do that, I mean, maybe you have a specific point in using characters for a story like that, but people would recognize these are not those characters. Not really. Or talking symbolically. If you saw somebody wearing a swastika, and they said that they had decided that wearing a swastika means that you support universal health care, you would think that person was completely full of shit. Or an idiot. Probably both. I mean, why would you adopt an existing symbol to mean something that it has never meant? So, the question here then, to me, taking all this into account, why does one become a Satanist of any sort? In my estimation, it's because one believes that they are better than other people and want to take full advantage of that fact. They expressly want to be wolves among sheep. Or this is something that they aspire to be, and their becoming a Satanist is an exercise in fake it until you make it. Now, in this whole wolves and sheep metaphor, I do want to say I'm definitely a sheep and not a wolf. I'm an old pudgy writer who imagines all sorts of make-believe dark things, but I suffer mental health outcomes based on negative public reactions, so that's not very wolfy, and now we've got entertainment in the background, you know. But, you know, I have been around Satanists of various kinds and people who practice the occult more generally. I mean, no, not Wicca and that sort of thing. I mean actual occultism. I mean, I went out a few times with this one girl that had an altar with human bones. Where'd you get those? Graveyards. Okay. Point is, if someone tells me they worship the devil, or they're a Levian Satanist, I can deal with them on that level. I have a framework I'm familiar with. But if someone were to tell me they were part of the Satanic Temple, or a satanic feminist, trying to present this idea of satanic humanism, I would think, for my own safety, I'd have to assume that they were telling the truth about being satanic. Which means they're wolves trying to hide in sheep's clothing. A predator looking for easier prey. Avoid. Or they're fucking posers, and I kind of wish a real wolf would come along, you know, and infiltrate that flock of sheep. That would serve them right. Of course now, you might be wondering, why in the world am I going on about all of this? Why is this on the LOTFP channel? This is a gaming channel, right? Well, because we here at LOTFP, Lamentations of the Flame Princess, we do indeed invoke Satan and satanic iconography in our publications. And I want to let you know that we do it right. Let me give you some examples from our actual books, all by different authors. It's getting cold out here. I'm not wearing gloves. So, oh great. First one's Latin. Forgive my pronunciation of this dead language. Fermentvm Nigrvm de Sepvlti. That book has a metallic foil upside-down cross dominating the cover. But there's no Satan in the book. The antagonist, I guess you can say, is an alien yeast that infects and controls people through the beer that this group of monks brew. Spoilers. In-world, they'd recognize this corruption as satanic, and it is a malevolent outside force. So there's a reason for the satanic iconography. It makes sense in-world, and there is a thematic connection to the satanic concept with the corruption and domination and all that. Then we have 666, the Mayhemic Misssile method. And yes, the 3 S's, that is intentional. It's consistent on the cover and in the book. Anyway, this one's a bit more flash than substance, but still. The book is about magic, and even if it's game magic and not real occult magic, but have you noticed how many of the options involve the casting wizard to kind of self-harm? Even if it's just cosmetic, it's still a degradation of their human facade. Not to mention the entire book is about magic with only one single purpose: to harm others, to kill them if at all possible. And that's satanic enough for this old atheist. Yeah. Then we have the Book of Antitheses, an actual occult role-playing manual. I mean, it's all bullshit to me. But when it was released, I did hear back from some fans telling me that it aligned with their actual traditions, as they call them. It's as real a deal as it gets, apparently. And in teaching you how to seize the real power, it encourages you to cut off your genitals. I mean, Satan, right, I guess? And I don't know what disturbs me more. I mean, getting a real-life lawsuit from someone that cut their junk off and then blames me because nothing happened? Or if I were to be greeted at a convention by someone who did cut their nards off, and they thank me for helping unlock their true potential. How about we don't cut your genitals? Oh yeah, anyway. Then there's Fuck for Satan. That's mine. This one is perhaps the least satanic of all on the surface. The supposed Satan is simply a small alien that has used a severed goat's penis as clothing. The entire adventure is one of misdirection and just screwing with the players, and yet, the people that fall under the sway of this alien, they're abandoning their responsibilities, their wives, their children. They're effectively throwing their whole lives away. Even if it's secret at first, but it's not going to stay secret. They're throwing their whole lives away just to engage with orgiastic pleasures of the flesh. And that's not a good thing. I mean, that is so much not a good thing. And whose influence does that remind me of? Could it be Satan? Oh, here comes the plow again. Anyway, I got 2 paragraphs left and we're gonna do this. Here we go. Wait, where is the guy? Is he coming here? He's literally was coming right at me. Here we go. Anyway. Fucking up my church lady joke. Jesus Christ. I'm going to write a letter to the mayor. Anyway. Do you get my point on all this? To pretend that Satan is this friendly thing is to completely destroy its power. And if you take away its power, then it becomes useless as a literary device, as a metaphorical tool. It's made useless for any damn thing. And frankly, the disempowerment of Satan like that seems to me like an awfully Christian thing to do. Happy New Year.